Please tell Chike that his mother has come to see him.
Put her in the boys' quarters. I don't want my guests seeing her. Mama, he said you should go back.
Please, my son, I have come from very far away.
I am sorry, but you have to leave now.
After watching these, you might think you already know what kind of man Chike was. You might think he was simply proud, maybe arrogant, maybe just another rich man who forgot where he came from. But believe me, the truth was much worse than that. Before I continue, welcome to Estella African Stories and Folktales. If you enjoy African stories with powerful lessons, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story. My name is Adelbi, and the story I am about to tell you is not something I heard from a friend or read in a newspaper. I lived it. Every painful part of it. Chike was my elder brother, the same brother my family sacrificed everything for. The same brother who became rich and then behaved as if we were strangers. Growing up, life was not easy for us. Our father died when Chike was only 16 years old. One moment we were a family struggling together. The next moment it felt as if the entire world had collapsed on our heads. Mama was left alone with 3 children. No savings, no business, no support, nothing. Most people expected us to fall apart, but my mother refused to surrender. Every morning, before sunrise, she carried a tray of akara on her head and walked through the village selling it. When she returned home, she would wash clothes for people. Some evenings she worked on farms that did not belong to us. Anything she could do to keep food on the table. But even then, the money was never enough. One day, our secondary school principal called Mama and told her something that changed our lives forever. He said Chike was exceptionally brilliant. According to him, Chike had the potential to become somebody important, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, something great. Mama came home that evening with tears in her eyes. Not tears of sadness, tears of hope. For the first time since Papa died, she believed our family had a chance. That night, she gathered all of us inside our small mud house. The rain was leaking through the roof. Our dinner was barely enough for everyone. Yet, Mama looked at us and said something I can still hear today. If one child rises, all of us will rise. Those words became our family motto. From that day, every sacrifice was made for Chike. My younger brother Emeka dropped out of school for 1 year to work as a mechanic apprentice. Every kobo he earned went toward Chike's education. I stopped learning tailoring because we could not afford both my training and Chike's school fees. Mama sold the last piece of farmland Papa left behind, the land our family had owned for generations. I still remember the day she signed the papers. Her hands were shaking, but she smiled, because in her mind, she was not losing land. She was investing in her son's future. And for a while, it seemed worth it. Chike performed brilliantly in school. He earned admission into university. The entire village celebrated. People contributed money. Church members donated food. Even relatives who rarely visited suddenly appeared with gifts and encouragement. Everybody believed Chike would save the family. Nobody imagined he would become the source of our greatest pain. Years passed. Chike graduated with honors. After university, he moved to Lagos. At first he struggled. Then something happened. One business opportunity led to another. One contract led to another. Money began flowing. Real money. The kind of money we had only seen in movies. Soon, Chike owned expensive cars, then houses, then businesses. His name started appearing in newspapers. People called him Chief Chike, the pride of our village, the successful son, the self-made millionaire. Mama could not stop smiling. Whenever anybody mentioned his name, her face would light up like a child on Christmas morning. She believed her suffering was finally over. She believed her son would come back for the family. She was wrong. Terribly wrong. At first, the signs were small. Whenever Mama called him, he was always sounding busy. Whenever we asked when he would visit, he always had excuses. Whenever family meetings happened, he was suddenly unavailable. But he was never too busy to attend events in Lagos, never too busy to appear in newspapers, never too busy to donate money publicly. That was what hurt the most. You see, Chike loved helping strangers. If a church wanted a donation, he was there. If a politician needed sponsorship, he was there. If a charity organization called, he was there. People praised him everywhere. They called him generous, kind, compassionate, a blessing to society. Only we knew the truth. The same man donating millions to strangers could not send enough money to repair the leaking roof over his mother's head. The same man paying hospital bills for people he had never met could not pay for his younger brother's business. The same man feeding entire communities was allowing his own family to struggle. And things only became worse. One Christmas, Mama insisted we visit him in Lagos. She hadn't seen him in almost 2 years. She missed her son. She wanted to spend time with him. The journey was long and exhausting, but she was excited. The entire way there, she kept talking about how proud she was of him, how successful he had become, how blessed he was. If only she knew what was waiting for us. The moment we arrived at his mansion, I knew something was wrong. The house was enormous, beautiful, like something from television. But Chike did not welcome us. He did not hug Mama. He did not ask about our journey. Instead, he called one of his security guards. Then he said something I will never forget. Take them to the boys' quarters. At first I thought I misunderstood. Surely he could not mean his own mother. Surely he could not mean the woman who sold her future for his. But he did. We spent 3 days in the boys' quarters while guests, business associates and socialites enjoyed the main house. 3 days. And that was only the beginning. What Chike did next broke my mother's heart in a way that changed all our lives forever. But before I continue, if you are enjoying this story, please like this video and subscribe to Estella African Stories and Folktales. Trust me, the worst part of this story has not yet happened. Now, where did I stop? Ah, yes, the boys' quarters. Even today, when I remember those 3 days, my chest still feels heavy. Imagine a mother who spent years starving so her son could eat. A mother who sold land, worked herself sick, and sacrificed everything she had. Now imagine that same mother sitting quietly in a small room behind her son's mansion while strangers enjoyed the luxury she helped build. That was Mama's reality. The first day, she said nothing. The second day, she still smiled. By the third day, even I could see the pain hiding behind her eyes. The worst part was that Chike acted as if nothing was wrong. Each morning, expensive cars drove into the compound. Businessmen arrived, politicians arrived, church leaders arrived. And whenever visitors were around, Chike avoided bringing us near them. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then, I overheard a conversation. One afternoon, I stepped outside to fetch water. Chike was standing near the swimming pool with 2 wealthy friends. One of them asked about us. I heard him laugh. Then he said words that made my blood run cold. Those people, they are distant relatives from the village. Distant relatives. Not his mother, not his sister, not the family that built him. Just distant relatives. I stood there frozen. For a moment, I thought I had heard wrongly. But then his friends nodded and continued their conversation. As if nothing had happened. As if my mother's sacrifices had never existed. That evening, I wanted to tell Mama. I really did. But when I looked at her face, I couldn't. She was still talking proudly about her son, still defending him, still convincing herself that he was simply busy. So I kept quiet, a decision I would later regret. The following morning, something happened that finally opened Mama's eyes. One of Chike's domestic workers mistakenly directed a guest toward the boys' quarters. The woman entered our room and immediately recognized Mama. "Wait," she said, "aren't you Chief Chike's mother?" Mama smiled proudly. "Yes, my daughter." The woman's eyes widened. "Are you his mother?" Before Mama could answer again, another worker rushed inside. The panic on his face said everything. He quickly escorted the guest away. That evening, we heard shouting coming from the main house. Chike was furious. Apparently, he had scolded the workers for allowing his guests to discover where we were staying. That was when Mama finally stopped defending him. That night, she cried herself to sleep. The following morning, we returned to the village. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother look defeated. Not by poverty, not by hardship, but by her own child. Months passed, then years. Things became even worse. Mama grew older. Her health began to fail. Her knees hurt constantly. Her eyesight weakened. Sometimes she struggled to breathe. Yet, Chike rarely visited. Whenever he sent money, it came with complaints. Whenever he helped, he reminded everyone about it afterwards. One day, my younger brother Emeka needed money to expand his small workshop. Nothing extravagant, just enough to buy equipment and employ 2 apprentices. We called Chike. At first, he ignored us. Then, he finally answered. His response shocked everyone. "If I keep giving all of you money, when will you learn responsibility?" Responsibility. The same responsibility we showed when we sacrificed our education, our opportunities, and our future for him. The hypocrisy was unbelievable. But even then, Mama refused to curse him, refused to insult him, refused to hate him. She simply said, "One day he will understand." Unfortunately, that understanding came too late. One rainy season, Mama became seriously ill. At first, we thought it was malaria. Then weeks passed. Instead of improving, she grew weaker. Soon, she could barely stand. The local clinic referred us to a larger hospital. After several tests, the doctors delivered devastating news. Mama needed treatment immediately. Without it, her condition could become fatal. The amount required was beyond anything we could afford. Naturally, we called Chike. Surely this time would be different. Surely no son would abandon his sick mother. Surely not after everything she had done. We were wrong again. The first call was unanswered. The second call was unanswered. The third call was rejected. Finally, after nearly a week, he answered. His voice sounded irritated, not concerned, not worried, not concerned. I explained everything. The diagnosis, the doctor's warning, the urgency. When I finished speaking, there was silence. Then he asked the question that broke something inside me. How much exactly will this cost? Not, how is Mama? Not, is she suffering? Not, can I speak to her? Only money. When I told him the amount, he sighed heavily, as though we were disturbing him, as though his mother's life was an inconvenience. I'll see what I can do. Those were his exact words. I will see what I can do. Meanwhile, social media was full of pictures showing him donating millions to charity events, pictures of smiling strangers receiving oversized checks, pictures of him sponsoring community projects, pictures of him receiving awards for generosity. The irony was unbearable. Days passed, no money came. Mama's condition worsened. Finally, we decided to travel to Lagos ourselves. We took Mama directly to his mansion. She was weak, very weak. Even climbing out of the vehicle exhausted her. When Chike saw us, his face darkened immediately. Instead of concern, he looked annoyed, as if our presence embarrassed him. And that day happened to be the same day he was hosting an important gathering. Several influential guests were already inside. Instead of taking Mama into the house, he instructed security to keep us waiting outside. Outside. His sick mother, outside his own gate, for almost 3 hours. 3 long hours. By the time he finally came out, Mama was shivering from exhaustion. Yet, his first words were not about her health. His first words were, "Why do you people always choose the worst possible time?" I still remember the silence that followed, a silence so painful that even the security guards lowered their eyes. Mama looked at him, really looked at him. Perhaps for the first time, she saw the man he had become. Not the boy she raised, not the son she sacrificed for. A stranger, a complete stranger. And what happened next would change Chike's life forever. Because before that day ended, a mother's broken heart would speak words that neither heaven nor earth seemed willing to ignore. And from that moment onward, the downfall of Chief Chike would begin. Now, listen carefully, because what happened next still gives me goosebumps whenever I remember it. As Mama sat outside that mansion gate, struggling to catch her breath, something inside her finally broke. Not her body, her heart. The heart that had defended Chike for years. The heart that had made excuses for him when nobody else could. The heart that had continued loving him even when he treated her like a burden. For a long moment, she simply stared at him. Chike folded his arms, clearly impatient, clearly eager to return to his important guests. Then Mama spoke. Her voice was weak, but every word landed like a stone. "Chike." For the first time, he looked directly at her. "You were the child I carried on my back." Silence. "You were the child I protected when hunger entered our house." Silence. "You were the child your brothers and sisters sacrificed for." I noticed something shift in Chike's expression. Not guilt, not yet, just discomfort. The kind of discomfort people feel when the truth stands in front of them. Then Mama continued. "We gave you everything." Her voice trembled. "We sold land. We sold our future. We gave up our dreams so that one day you would remember us." The compound had become completely quiet. Even the security guards were listening. Then tears appeared in Mama's eyes. "I did not raise you to become ashamed of your family." For a brief second, I thought Chike might apologize. I thought perhaps he would finally come to his senses. Instead, he sighed. Actually sighed. Then he said something that shocked everyone. "You people always like emotional drama." I felt my stomach drop. Even today, I wish he had remained silent, but he didn't. He continued, "Do you know how hard I worked for everything I have? Must everybody depend on me forever?" The words hit Mama like a slap. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, something had changed. The disappointment was gone. The hope was gone. The excuses were gone. All that remained was heartbreak. Then she slowly stood up, supported by Emeka and me, and she spoke words nobody there would ever forget. "Chike, you value wealth more than blood. You honor strangers and disgrace your own family. You feed those who never sacrificed for you, while the people who built your future suffer." Tears streamed down her face. Then came the words that would haunt him. "If the wealth that entered your life has made you forget your roots." She paused. The entire compound was silent. "Then may that same wealth leave you until you learn their value." My heart stopped. Even the security guards looked frightened. Mama was not shouting. She was not cursing from anger. She sounded like a woman whose spirit had finally surrendered. Then she pointed toward him. "The day you cry for help and nobody answers, remember this moment. The day hunger sits beside you, remember this moment. The day the people you spent your fortune on abandon you, remember this moment." Then she turned around and walked away. That was the last conversation she ever had with her son. 3 weeks later, Mama died. When the news reached Chike, he arrived for the funeral wearing expensive designer clothes and dark sunglasses. The entire village watched him. Nobody greeted him warmly. Nobody rushed to welcome him. For the first time in his life, money could not buy respect. During the burial, the village elder stood up. He looked directly at Chike and said, "Some children lose their parents because God calls them home. Others lose their parents long before death because they break their hearts." You could hear a pin drop. Chike lowered his eyes. But even then, he still didn't fully understand. He thought life would continue as normal. He thought money would protect him. He thought success made him untouchable. He was wrong. Very wrong. At first, nothing happened. Months passed. His businesses continued growing. His houses remained full. His bank accounts remained healthy. People in the village started whispering. Perhaps Mama's words meant nothing. Perhaps they were only the pain of a disappointed mother. Then the cracks began to appear. Small at first. A trusted manager disappeared with company funds. A major contract collapsed unexpectedly. One of his warehouses suffered severe damage after a fire. Several investments failed at the same time. Millions vanished. Still, Chike wasn't worried. He had survived business setbacks before, but this time was different. The losses kept coming. One problem became another, then another, then another. Before long, banks started demanding repayments, creditors started calling, court cases emerged, business partners disappeared. People who once praised him suddenly became unavailable. The same politicians who called him my brother stopped answering his calls. The same socialites who enjoyed his generosity stopped visiting. The same friends who drank expensive wine in his mansion suddenly had excuses. One evening, Chike sat alone in his enormous living room. His phone was in his hand. He called 5 different people he had helped financially. 5, not one answered. The 6th finally answered. After listening for a moment, the man said, "Chief, things are difficult right now." Then he hung up. Chike stared at the screen, and suddenly he remembered. The day you cry for help and nobody answers, remember this moment. For the first time, fear entered his heart. Real fear. Not fear of losing money. Fear of losing everything. Within 2 years, the empire he spent decades building collapsed. Properties were sold, cars disappeared, staff were dismissed. His mansion was seized. The newspapers that once celebrated him now reported his downfall. People who once envied him now pitied him, and some mocked him. The mighty Chike had become a shadow of himself. Then came the moment that broke him completely. One evening, tired, hungry, and defeated, he returned to the village, the same village he had abandoned, the same village he was ashamed of, the same village where his family still lived. He arrived carrying one small bag. That was all he had left. When Emeka opened the door and saw him standing there, silence filled the room. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then something happened Chike never expected. Emeka hugged him. Not because he deserved it, not because he had earned forgiveness, but because family remained family. Chike collapsed to his knees and cried. The kind of cry that comes from years of regret, years of pride, years of mistakes. The next morning, he went to Mama's grave, alone. For hours he remained there. Nobody knows everything he said, but villagers passing by heard him apologizing again and again, asking for forgiveness, begging for another chance, a chance that would never come, because some apologies arrive too late. But from that day forward, Chike changed. He stopped chasing status, stopped trying to impress strangers, stopped measuring people's worth by wealth. Slowly, he rebuilt his life. Not his fortune, his life. And this time, family came first. Years later, Whenever people asked him what caused his downfall, he always gave the same answer. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't business failure. It wasn't betrayal. I became poor the day I forgot the people who made me rich. And if there's one lesson this story teaches, it is this. A tree can grow taller than every other tree in the forest, but the moment it forgets its roots, it begins to die from the inside. Now, tell me honestly, if you were in Mama's position, would you have forgiven Chike, or would you have walked away long before that day at the mansion gate? Let us know in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to Estella African Stories and Folktales, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening. Until the next story, may you never forget the people who sacrificed for your success.